Jason,
What's up, Jacob? How's it going?
good. How's the new RV?
It's good. It's good. Just been driving a bunch, but it's good. It's nice.
Did you
It's a new
see
home.
my Did you see my thumbnail just in your honor?
No, I didn't. For this thing?
Yeah, yeah.
No, I didn't even see it. Oh, dang, I'm gonna have to go
It's a
look.
Walmart parking lot.
I'm actually, that's funny. I'm actually in a Love's right now. Love's travel stop, but I was in a Walmart
Loves.
earlier, and then that's when I got the time zone mixed up. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna keep driving then. So
So Garth, to explain the late night Bible studies, I don't stream on the Sabbath, so it has to be after dark Los Angeles time if we're doing it on Saturdays.
I forgot all
Uh,
about the Sabbath. My weeks have been so messed up. I don't even know what day it is anymore.
it is Saturday night. We, we,
So
we,
weird.
we should play the Bee Gees.
Play the what? The Bee
The
Gees?
Bee Gees? Yeah.
The Bee. Okay. I didn't know that.
You
I
know
thought you
that.
said
You know
Ouija
that.
at first.
No, Bee Gees. Uh,
Either one.
Saturday night
Do it.
fever.
You won't get. You won't get slapped with a copyright.
Oh, I can't play the thing, so you're gonna have to sing it. Yeah, you're gonna have to sing it.
I don't know which one you're talking about. Saturday
You
night.
don't know Saturday
I'm.
Night
I'm.
Fever? Night
I know it
fever,
if I heard it.
night fever.
Well, you're
We
singing it
know
now.
how to do it.
I think
Uh,
I might know it if I. I might know it if I heard it.
Jacob is showing his age. So Saturday Night Fever came out the year I was born. Um,
What year was that?
1977.
There's a. Sorry, I was looking at a dog. Some lady with a dog.
Are you gonna steal one of the people's dogs? You're so mean.
No,
If
he's
it's a
just. He
cute
was
dog,
walking.
I mean, you might as well do it.
I can't tell if he's old or if there's just something wrong with him because he's walking really funny. He doesn't look old, but like it looks like his back legs aren't working right. It's kind of sad. Poor
Don't know what to
guy.
do.
Poor guy. Yeah, there's something wrong with him for sure. She's like kind of holding him. I don't know.
You're gonna shoot the
Weird.
dog? You're so mean.
I'm not gonna shoot the dog. Oh my gosh. So what are we gonna talk about? You got any ideas?
Well, I was just listening to James White talking about apostasy.
All right. What was that about?
Well,
I don't know who James White is.
you don't know who James White is.
No, sorry.
He's
The
one.
Catholic guy?
He's one of these internet pastors.
I am gonna look him up. James White, internet pastor.
He does a lot of debates with like Mormons and
Oh.
atheists, Muslims.
I've never even heard of this guy before. James White. People also ask, is Dr. James White married? He is married, and he and his wife have 2 children. He also has 2 grandchildren. Is he a PhD?
And he wears really weird sweater vests.
Oh. So what was he saying about it? Was there anything interesting?
Well, I got this undertone of it seems he's been dealing with people who've been leaving Christianity for Judaism. At least that's what it seemed like to me. It might have been me like reading things I want to hear into it, but I mean, I don't know if in Judaism, I mean, so in Orthodox Judaism, we see a lot of former Christians joining. And but we're a pretty small community, and the Christian community is huge. So it's not obvious if like it's a noticeable number from the Christian community, but the people we get tend to be like pastors and like very like I don't know if there's ever been like a very prominent pastor who's converted to Judaism, but like all of the people who do tend to be at least like I don't know, knowledgeable and in leadership positions.
Do they normally convert because they just have a conviction? They find Christianity doesn't make sense enough to them anymore?
So so this has been my big thing with witness. You know what? We should probably pray first. Let's pray first.
Okay.
It's all you.
All right. Heavenly Father, we come before you right now. We just look for this time to just come together. This time we get to talk about you and glorify you. I ask that you let your words be on our tongue, and that we bring you honor in everything we say and do tonight, and ask that you guide our minds and our hearts and direct them into what you want to reveal to us. But amen.
So I have this personal feeling about witness. So there's the verse in Psalm 145, I believe it is. Karov Hashem l'chol korav l'chol asher yikrahu bemet. God is close to all who call upon him in truth. And so I genuinely believe that like a religious Hindu will, through being religiously Hindu or a Christian or a Muslim, will be led towards God through their religiosity, right? And which is why, for me personally, it's been such a powerful witness that I have not been able to find in the history of humanity a religious Jew who, through their study of Torah and being religiously involved in Judaism, was led to believe in Christianity. Like, I've never seen that. And there's plenty of Christians who claim that it's happened. And I've gone through entire lists of names. Like, I've checked individual names one by one. Because for me, that says something, right? And lots of people, I mean, I've mentioned this before, and plenty of people don't find it very convincing. But so Rabbi Skobach mentioned this story he's told a few times, and I really love, which is he had a cloistered monk. You know what a cloistered monk is?
Nope. It sounds familiar. I think
A cloistered monk is somebody who's in a monastery and basically like completely out, withdrawn from the world. They spend their entire days in the monastery. They often have vows of silence, and they pray all day and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so a monk called Rabbi Skobach and told him that he needed Rabbi Skobach to come visit him in the monastery. And Rabbi Skobach goes and meets with this guy in his cell, in his monastery cell. And the monk tells him, I want to convert to Judaism. And Rabbi Skobach's like, why? Like, Chezi is excited you're here, Jason. Um,
Hey, Hezzy. Sorry, I was trying to unplug this hard drive and see if my computer will speed up a little bit. It's kind of lagging.
um,
There.
and he asked him why, and the guy says, "We say the entire book of Psalms every day, and the longest psalm is Psalm 119, and it's 176 verses, right? It's an eightfold acrostic, so it's 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, 8 times 22, and all of it is about how great the law of God is." And I I I just felt, if it's so great, why don't I keep it? And so he decided to convert to Judaism. Right?
Nice.
And for me, that's powerful witness, because I believe that somebody who honestly searches will be guided towards God, right? And that's why, for me, it's like, okay, if Christianity is correct, and like the Torah and the Old Testament is uh, all about Jesus being the Messiah, then why is it that like there are hundreds of thousands of yeshiva students who do nothing but study the Old Testament, and like not one of them suddenly goes, "Hey, that Jesus guy, he must be the Messiah." Like, it's never happened, not even once.
It never had. Not
I
people that really study, you're saying.
I defy any, like, I've gone through lists and lists of names. I
Yeah.
found one person you could argue was like that. His name was Isaac Lichtenstein, and I read the translation of his book to English. It wasn't very convincing. He was convinced that Christianity is correct and that Jews should convert, but he himself never got baptized.
Gotcha.
Because he said he was not going to get baptized until the rest of the Jews did as well.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So, like,
that's interesting.
even,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I still think. I mean, I think there's in a lot of ways. I mean, there are some ways where I do think Christianity might be wrong, but I do think in a lot of ways Christianity is right. But I would not think people need to convert to it. I kind of think that's the point. I don't know. I mean, would you say I need to convert to Judaism, like I need to, or I just worship God?
No, I mean,
That's kind of how I feel.
That's something in Judaism that we've always been adamant about for thousands of years. You don't need to convert.
Yeah, see, that makes sense to me. I mean, I do think, like you said, Psalm 119, the law of God, there's something tremendously special about it. And so when you do convert, I think it adds to your life and enriches your life. But I don't think it's necessary. Same thing with Christianity. I don't necessarily think it's necessary to convert to Christianity. I do think Christ, in a lot of ways, exemplifies or embodies what we think of salvation. The whole, wrestling with God and man, the power of repentance and forgiveness and all those things are kind of embedded in that story. But there is a way that, and I have been thinking about this a lot lately too, that I do think, because I think you brought it up before, and then I had a friend ask me once, he was like, do you think Christianity is idolatry? And I was like, yeah, I guess so. But I always think of Rachel sitting on her idols, where she's just like covering them up. But I think in ways it definitely can be, because there's this thing where the image of God is in every man, and it gets so emphasized in Christ that there's no way to even hope for any type of theosis or one union with God when the one person of Christ is, I guess, idolized in such a way, which is probably a strange thing to say. I mean, because I still follow, like I would consider myself a follower of Christ, but I don't know. Jacob, how do you know this book? I don't know what that is. Geffen Publishing.
I have no idea which book he's talking
Is that about someone converting to Christianity from Judaism? That's weird because I've heard of people doing that, but I never looked into it to see if it was actually true. But I don't know. I've also heard of there's
The Return of Israel and the Hope of the World. Livni? Yeah, I haven't read that book yet.
Are we going to talk about Zionism?
I hope not. No, Livni is not Zionist. God. No, actually, I've been wanting to read this book. I just finished Crime and Punishment. This is probably my next book, although I still have to finish
What is that?
Jesus the Jew. Star of Redemption by Franz Rosenzweig. I've told you about this book, haven't I?
No, I don't think so. Was that the star that is over the manger that Jesus was born in?
No.
The same star.
No.
It's a hexagon.
So, I need to get some water. Franz Rosenzweig was this secular Jew whose cousin was a Christian, and so they wrote a lot of letters back and forth discussing philosophy, and his cousin convinced him that Christianity is true and he should convert to Christianity. So Rosenzweig decides, if I'm going to convert to Christianity, I'm going to do it right. And he decides, so what I'm going to do is first, I am going to learn about Judaism and become a religious Jew, and then I'm going to convert to Christianity.
Looking through the glass the right way, like you're talking about.
And he starts going to synagogue and he becomes a religious Jew, and he decides there's no good reason to convert to Christianity. And that's this book.
Nice.
Yeah. His explanation of so here. The Star of Redemption is widely recognized as a key document of modern existential thought, and a significant contribution to Jewish theology in the 20th century. An affirmation of what Rosenzweig called the new thinking, the work ensconces common sense in the place of the abstract, conceptual philosophizing, and posits the validity of the concrete, individual human being over that of humanity in general. Fusing philosophy and theology, it assigns both Judaism and Christianity distinct but equally important roles in the spiritual structure of the world, and finds in both biblical religions approaches toward a comprehension of reality. Resuming the anti-Hegelian revolt of Schopenhauer, Feuerbach, Kierkegaard, and Nietzsche, Rosenzweig repudiates the attempt by German idealism to reduce to one essence the three elements of reality: God, the world, and man. In The Star, he sets forth a system in which these elements are shown to be independent, irreducible from each other, and linked through the paths of creation, revelation, and redemption. Yeah, I had no idea. I'm not a huge fan of existentialism.
Sounds legit. You're not a huge fan of existentialism?
Not at all.
Wait, what do you mean by that? Well, I'm not even sure how to interpret that phrase. Existentialism is just like the life beyond this life, right?
Existentialism is it's the 20th century philosophy of people like Jean-Paul Sartre and Camus, um, who
So it's just a brand of philosophy. I thought it was like a
yeah.
study of like life after death sort of questions or something.
No. Existentialists actually, I believe, generally don't believe in uh, afterlife.
Really?
Existentialism.
All right.
Here, because Wikipedia knows everything, let's see what
Oh,
Wikipedia says. Because Wikipedia is right about everything, always. Wikipedia has never said anything wrong in the history of humanity, ever.
grounded in existence or the experience of existence. Existential.
Existentialism is a form of philosophical inquiry that explores the issue of human existence. Existentialist philosophers explore questions related to the meaning, purpose, and value of human existence. Common concepts in existentialist thought include existential crisis, dread, and anxiety in the face of an absurd world, as well as authenticity, courage, and virtue. Existentialism is associated with the several 19th and 20th century European philosophers who shared an emphasis on the human subject despite often profound differences in thought. Amongst the earliest figures associated with existentialism are philosophers Soren Kierkegaard, Friedrich Nietzsche, and novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky, all of whom critiqued rationalism and concerned themselves with the problems of meaning. In the 20th century, prominent existentialist thinkers included Jean-Paul Sartre, Albert Camus, Martin Heidegger, Simone de Beauvoir, Karl Jaspers, Gabriel Marcel, and Paul Tillich.
Huh. What do you know? Don't know many of those names.
Well, when I was in high school, Sartre, Camus, and de Beauvoir were like what everybody constantly talked about.
In high school, people were talking about this.
Yeah,
Like your friends?
No, including the teachers. What are you talking about? Like,
Bunch of
what
nerds.
you didn't have to read. You were not forced to read Camus in high school.
Not that I know of. If I did, I don't remember. I don't know.
I
I don't remember.
cannot believe you were not forced to read Camus in high school.
I don't know if I can remember anything from high school, if I'm being totally honest. Let's see. I remember having to take a computer class to learn how to type, which I cheated through most of the time.
You cheated in typing class?
Yeah.
How do you cheat in typing class?
I think because we had to type something up, and so then we would print it out. So I would just I would do half of it, and a friend of mine would do the other half, and then we just type the name and print out 2 double copies. And then, yeah, we eventually got caught, but because
they said Dostoevsky was existentialist. I actually thought of Dostoevsky. So the reason I was rereading Crime and Punishment was when I was 12 years old. I read Crime and Punishment for the first time, and it totally changed my life. And I spent the next 3 years reading Russian novels and stuff. And then when I got into high school and we started reading Sartre and Camus and stuff, I was totally immune to their bullshit.
And you got into high school and started reading all this philosophy. I mean, that's cool that you got to. I might have taken more interest in stuff like that if I had read that stuff in high school. I doubt it, though. I was pretty dense. I don't think I cared too much.
Yeah, so I recently realized, like Crime and Punishment probably was the most influential book in my formation as a human being, but I didn't remember it because I had read it 35 years ago. Right? So I decided to read it again. It was okay. I mean, yeah.
Mine was Calvin Hobbes, so still probably is. Calvin Hobbes is still amazing.
My
Really?
understanding is that existentialism is super broad category. The stuff you were exposed to was the later, more cynical stuff. Yeah, I did not realize that people refer to Dostoevsky as existentialism. But
Ah.
I
Have you-
guess I'm gonna have to read Rosenzweig now.
Have you ever played the Final Fantasy franchise games?
Probably some.
Final Fantasy IX. I would consider that one existential. That whole game. But
If you
like
say
you said,
so.
this is a broad. It's so good. It's so good. It's probably one of the best video games I've ever played in my life. I don't even play them
Final
that big.
Fantasy, isn't that the
Final
one
Fantasy
where like
IX.
it's Final Fantasy 9? It's an
9.
online game.
No,
No, that's
9 is not
14.
online. Yeah, 14 is
Final
online. I don't know what. There's 6 was pretty good, but I still like Final Fantasy 9 the best. But
Hold on, isn't it the one? Yeah, I never really liked. Yeah, I never liked the what you call it?
the little monkey boy.
No, this attack whole thing. I just
Oh,
found
yeah,
it really
yeah.
boring.
The turn-based attack system. Yeah.
I prefer turn-based games, but I never got into Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I did. That's what I got into in high school. So I didn't need the philosophers. I was just playing that, and reading Calvin and Hobbes, and probably drinking Mountain Dew. That's about it.
Yeah, Mountain Dew played a big role in my friend's high school life, not so much me.
Shots. What? What were you drinking? Water?
I was never really that much into caffeine. Yeah.
Oh. Oh. I love caffeine. I need it. Ryan says he loves Calvin and Hobbes. Who is a fathead or facade?
I'm not sure if that's what's his name from New Orleans. I'm forgetting his name. The young guy who sometimes comes on. He's really young.
So that was converting to Judaism a while back.
Yeah.
You haven't seen him in a while. Why can't I
Yeah.
remember his name? I feel really bad now.
I can't
Kurt.
remember his name either.
Kurt,
Kurt.
right?
Yeah. Kurt.
Yeah.
Kurt. Yes.
Kurt. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's him. He's on. He comes on. He comes on. What is that? Twitch. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Gotcha. Well, Calvin,
Tiffany showed up.
Oh, really?
Very well on the Discord server. She.
Nice. Is she doing okay? I haven't seen or heard from her in a long time.
She just posted a poem, and that's all she posted.
What? Wow.
Veterans Day Poem 2023 by Marty Z, USMC 69 to 71. Veterans Day is again coming upon us, but please don't wish me happy Veterans Day, for that might make me cuss. You see, my remembrance goes first out to the ones I met, then goes out to all that have become of it. And most of those thoughts aren't on the happy side. How can they be, when you think of all those maimed and all those who have died? Now, I don't want to bring you down or get you upset, and I for sure don't want you to put it aside and forget. But happy isn't the word that fits the day. We need to find another way to say that we respect you, honor you, and are grateful for what you've done. Every father, mother, brother, sister, daughter, and son. Not to mention the loved ones and friends we held dear. Those that have passed and those still here. Anyway, these are my thoughts. Maybe you disagree, but happy Veterans Day. Don't make it for me. So that's what she posted, but that's all she said.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah. It's the first thing
she's look up. Sorry,
And
go ahead.
yeah, it's the first thing she's said in a pretty long time.
Her, what was her religion called again? It was,
She's Baha'i.
that's it, Baha'i. Forgot about that. I'll ask Shalom Alachayim? How do you say that? Alachayim?
Shalom Aleichem.
Is that is the hem at the end? Is that life? Because I know
No.
Hayim is life. Okay.
Chaim is, but Aleichem. Chem is the chem is the suffix for the second person plural masculine.
Oh, okay. Huh. So what does that mean? Shalom Elechem.
Shalom, peace. Al means upon, and second person plural masculine.
Okay.
So in
On.
southern Tennessean, you would say, "Shalom, all y'all."
Exactly, just like that. All y'all. I don't even know if they'd say shalom, but maybe good day. Good day, all y'all.
All y'all.
Probably not good day. I don't know what they'd say.
All y'all is how you say second person masculine, right?
Speaking
second
of,
person plural.
So I'm in Alabama. I'm not quite sure why this is in Alabama. Oh no, where'd it go? Did I lose this thing already? No, I got the wrong.
Hold on, you're in Alabama. Where are you going to if you're in Alabama and you're going to?
I was going back home to Tennessee.
From where?
From Oregon. I had planned to fly out to see my sister.
Hold on. You're going home from Oregon to Tennessee, and you're in Alabama.
Yes. So what I did was I bought this RV.
No. That's okay. I'm looking at a map of the United States.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's pull up.
So
let's add this.
We're looking at a map of the United States.
Zoom in here. I'll show you. Yeah.
So there's Alabama. There's Tennessee. There's Oregon. There is no line you can draw.
Okay.
From Oregon to Tennessee.
I cut down to Dallas to see Craig and Kyle on my way, which I didn't know it was going to be that far out of the way, but it was quite a haul. But yeah, I'm trying to get back to Tennessee so I can fly out to India next weekend, and then when I get back, then maybe I can work my way back out west again. I don't really know yet. But yeah, it doesn't really work when you're drawing the straight line, that's for sure. I did a weird dip. So I'm down, I don't know where I'm at right now, actually, somewhere in Alabama, but, I think I'm close to Birmingham. So Abram, that I play music with, he is in Bridgeport, and I got to go up to Chattanooga. So I'm all...
My cousin lives in Nashville.
A little north of Chattanooga is where I live, but...
I have a cousin who lives in Nashville, and she's Baha'i too, actually. And her son...
Yeah. Nashville. Okay,
Nashville. And her son is a linebacker at Rhodes College in Tennessee.
I don't know where Rhodes College is. Is that in Nashville, I guess?
I don't know where Rhodes College is, but it's in Tennessee.
Anyway, look what I got at the gas station in Alabama. It's a gator foot on a necklace. It was like $4. I was like, how am I not going to buy this for $4? Isn't that awesome? It's so big, too.
Rhodes College is in Memphis.
Oh, yeah, don't go to Memphis. Don't even go to Nashville either. It's everything. West Tennessee is just flat and kind of boring, to be honest. Alabama's kind of pretty, though. Texas is god-awful. Don't go to Texas. I don't know why everybody's moving to Texas. Everybody lives in Texas. And it's like, every time I've been to Texas, I'm like, it's probably one of the worst states.
Black Masks asks, out of curiosity, Jacob, is there a reason you don't wear a kippah as an Orthodox Jewish person? I thought a yarmulke was considered like a sign of piety in the religious Jewish community, but you're always bald or with a hat. So keeping your
You're always
keeping
bald.
your head covered is considered a reminder of the fact that you are finite and God exists. And so most Orthodox Jews do it. But wearing a yarmulke when you don't actually observe everything else is not considered one of the best things to do, and you should never. So, for example, if you're going somewhere, there are all kinds of places where Orthodox Jews will deliberately wear a baseball cap as opposed to wear a yarmulke, just not to give the impression. Like if you go into a non-kosher restaurant, you even if you're not eating there, you don't want to sit at a table with a yarmulke, giving the impression that it's kosher. So like, yeah, wearing a yarmulke is probably one of the last observances you would take on as an Orthodox Jew, even though it was one of the first observances I took on 30 some years ago when I first became religious. That was really, really interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, so it's
So
basically
I
just to
met
cover your head then. So you would think you'd just be able to kind of allow to wear any hat.
you are.
Yeah. Or
Um,
hood. Can you wear a hoodie?
yeah, you can cover your head with anything. So I met Mitch's friend, whose name I am completely forgetting right now, at the at Antiochian Village when I went to the Lord of Spirits podcast thing. Like his face, I can see his face in front of me. He joined the Discord server. It's McGugs is his name. He's Orthodox. How many friends do you have that are Orthodox?
Me?
Yeah. He's part of your whole Mitch group. You and Mitch and the rest of you guys.
He's an Orthodox.
Orthodox Christian.
I'm trying to think of who that would be. It's not Peter, is it?
I don't think so.
Like I'm trying to think
name.
of Mitch is Orthodox. Let's see, and Craig's not. There's Cal, Luke, Thompson. I really don't talk to all that many people. There's you, Yosef, Hezi, Peter L'Esperance is in our chat group, but he's been kind of in and out lately because he plays music as well. But he might have gone. I don't know who else would go. Where was it again? You said it was in Antioch?
He lives in St. Louis.
Oh.
Missouri, I think so.
And
he goes by McGugs. I think he knows you. Pretty sure he knows you. I can't remember his name. Was it David? He really tall guy. He's a perfumer.
I have no idea. This is not ringing a bell. A perfumer. That's fascinating though.
He's 6'7" and a perfumer.
Yeah, I don't know who this is. I'd like to meet him though.
Yeah, when I met him, it was really interesting because and how he became a perfumer is he had this really interesting story. But the Talmud, so the Talmud says like the prototypical example of the best the luckiest profession you can have in the Talmud is perfumer. It's like Father Stephen said it's he said it was the ancient equivalent of being an ice cream taster.
Why? That's weird.
Well,
Nice.
imagine having the job of being an ice cream taster. Like that's a pretty awesome job right there, right?
Yeah. Especially if
So
you get to name the flavors, that would be even better.
yeah, I actually knew somebody who was a professional chocolate taster.
Dang.
Yeah,
Were they fat?
no, he wasn't at all.
Really?
Yeah. Um, but so what's his name? Whose name I can't remember, but his face I can remember. Is a perfumer, and he came up to me and he's like, "My friend Mitch said I should say hi." I'm like, oh, hello.
So Mitch knows him. So I don't know him. So Mitch.
I
could
thought
ask
you
Mitch.
knew Mitch's friends. Don't know Mitch's friends?
I
Aren't you
don't know
all
Mitch's friends.
friends
Mitch has so
together?
many friends. Yeah, Mitch is he's one of my closest friends, I would say. We talk fairly often. I don't see him very much though, because he lives in Atlanta. So I've only actually ever hung out with Mitch like twice, I think, maybe 3 times. Because there was a
I've
whole
never hung
year.
out with Mitch.
I know he's got that baby now. He's always just ruins lives. But yeah, I don't know a lot of his friends. He knows. I think he talks to a lot more people than I do, especially across different denominations, things like that. It seems to me like he does. So
Chezi's still high from the Sabbath.
it was a very good movie.
Yeah, I have never heard of the movie Perfume. Have you heard of the movie Perfume?
Nope, haven't heard of it. Nope. We could talk about perfume though in the Bible. If you want to get in the Bible, what is that in Esther? Didn't they have the reference to perfume?
Well,
Perfumes.
I can pull up Sepharia.
6 months with ointments and perfumes, I think. Where else are perfumes? Well, I know it's in Exodus where it talks about making it. Cinnamon.
Bosam. Let's see what comes up. Bosam. Yeah, Song of Songs. But that's spells Bosam with a sin. Although Besami. Yeah. In Esther, yeah, Esther 2:12. That's also with a sin. How come in the Bible it's all with a sin, but in the Talmud it's all with a samech? That's strange.
What does that mean?
It's just spelled differently. There are several things. So in the Talmud, for some reason, a lot of things that were spelled with sin get spelled, including sota, get spelled with a samech.
And it's just a spelling, it doesn't mean anything different.
Yeah, not really, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice. There's nothing in Ruth? I don't think there's anything in Ruth about it. I don't think it sounded like she had perfumes. She just had barley and wheat.
Well, I could limit this just to Tanakh. 26 places in Tanakh. Song of Songs 5:1, Esther 2:12, Exodus 30:23. What?
Exodus is Tanakh?
Exodus is Torah, yeah, Tanakh, yeah.
Oh, that's all included? Okay.
Yeah, so Torah is 5 books of Moses, Nevi'im is the prophets, and Ketuvim is the writings.
Oh, so
when I say Nach is for girls, I say Nach is for girls, not Tanakh, like the Torah. Yeah.
Okay, but Nach is like the without
Is
the Torah.
just is the
Gotcha,
prophets
okay.
and the writings.
That's what-
I mean, we could pull
Man,
up.
it's songs a lot.
It is, yeah.
Oh yeah, is the King's reference, is that Queen of Sheba? I think you scroll 1 Kings 10:2 down a little more.
This is
That won't
Second
be it.
Kings. Oh,
Yeah.
First Kings 10:2.
Yeah.
And she came to Jerusalem with a very great train, with camels that bore spices. Wow, we have a Chezi.
That
Hello,
close to
Chezi.
spices. Is the word spices the perfumes? Hey, Hezzy.
I think in the book of Esther, there's other when she's with Haggai. He takes a fancy to her when she gets to the palace, and he offers her all different types of spices. There's different words they use over there though. Besides besamim, there's tamrukim. But it's interesting words over there. I can't remember which verse it is, but yeah, there's like a spice bath. There's a whole scenario going on over there, and they sit in spices for like a whole year.
Yeah, so
That's
Esther 2:12. Yeah. Now, when every girl's turn was come to go into King Ahasuerus, after she had been 12 months under the regulations for the women, for so were the days of their anointing, namely 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors, and with other ointments of the women.
Probably a pretty chill year.
Probably.
I'm just like up until that moment, until you meet Xerxes, you're like, I mean, like every day is like a bath. Probably eating almonds. I don't know. She seems pretty relaxed. That's it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Where else do we have? I mean, obviously you have the incense at the Ketoret in the actual temple, and that just in general, that's another example of where in the temple you see a lot of things that were practiced via paganism ultimately
Get redeemed.
get redeemed and find their place inside the temple.
Wait, say more about that. What do you mean get redeemed and find their place?
Well, the Torah comes out against pretty intensely about worshiping idols and making different sculptures of variations. And then we also are being told that like no way, no how, do not do any blood sacrifices, don't deal with the blood, don't drink the blood, none of that. Get rid of all these types of trees, right? The Asherah tree, cut it off, get rid of it. We're not going to have any of that. Don't make any animals with regards to worshiping any animals. And then you have a temple that has in it a lot of blood rituals, and you build an ark that has cherubs on it, and you have your tabernacle that has pictures of different animals on it as well. And you clearly are doing sacrifices, and there's bowing down. So the Torah is expressing to you that all things find their place of expression in the Torah, though they have to be done in the proper orientation and in the proper fashion and manner, and in the right place. And while nature has a tremendous amount of untapped energy, which let's say the pagans or other nations have realized and try to tap into, unfortunately, if you understand that in the blood is, let's say, the nefesh, the soul, that could take you to decide to bathe in blood and drink blood before you go out to a berserker battle, or it shows you how to completely respect blood, elevate the concept of blood, and only deal with those, let's say, divine elements in the right place, in the proper orientation. So even the sons of Aaron ultimately mess up with that as well, and they have a devastating end. So that's what I mean when I say that it all has to find its proper place.
Chazi, do you want to take this question?
I can't. I'm in the middle of getting dressed, but one second. Let me see.
One thing I'm confused about is I
Yeah.
heard that Shabbat is a taste of the Messianic era. But from what I've read in Mishnah Torah, I thought the Messiah era would be mostly the same as now.
Okay, there's a difference between the Messianic area and the world to come, which people many times confuse those two. And yes, when the Messianic era comes, which is also, it's a long era. Is it just him? Is it his descendants? There's different questions with that regard, but generally speaking, things are supposed to continue as they are. Obviously, we are all in an elevated space, so you could assume that the culture may change and people may act differently, and there might be more peace. But the attitude is, we're not talking about people levitating and cupids rocking around playing like violins, little harps. That's not what we're envisioning. Specifically about a world to come, the Sabbath. The Sabbath is alluding to a day of rest, a day where you could be focusing more inwards, focusing on the Torah, looking at the world in a restful manner, in a redemptive manner. So this alludes to what will be in the world to come. And
also, that's the Mishnah Torah is Maimonides, and not everybody agrees with Maimonides.
Correct. I'd also, this relates both to seventh day and an eighth day element, but we are all still in a seventh day of creation, and that day has not been completed yet. All the other days have their sequence of completion, yet the seventh day has not been completed yet, and we are all hoping for the eighth day of creation. And while we have hints of that on Sabbath, because it's further along in the seventh day, it only lasts for one day. And you could also see how the temple, which is an eighth day element, which is a divine element, ultimately cannot stand in this world, in a seventh day world, for very long, and it ultimately keeps on getting destroyed because it's not a good fit yet, because we down here have not elevated ourselves yet to that matter. And hopefully we will one day have an eighth day to share with the whole world.
Eighth day is there understanding in the, I guess, Hebrew Jewish context of the eighth day being kind of like the new creation, the new heavens, new earth idea, being part of the eighth day? Or
you're cutting out.
He was asking if the eighth day is in Judaism like a new creation type thing.
Yeah, he's gone. I guess it wasn't me that was cutting out.
Nope, it was Chazi that was cutting out. So I forget what exactly the context was, but PVK once said, "There's no biblical eighth day," and I was like, "What?"
Yeah, there is. That's the day of circumcision. That's the day where you
Not
get a
only
name.
that, I mean, there's many places in the Bible that talks about the eighth day. There's a whole parsha called the eighth, called Shmini, and we have a holiday, Shmini Atzeret, the gathering of the eighth day. What?
For some reason, I felt like there was something with Solomon in the eighth day too, where it talked
I'm
about.
sure there is. Like, there's plenty of biblical eighth days, so I don't know what he was smoking.
So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of weird that he said that. So there is one though. Like, isn't there only once or twice where it references the ninth day? Let me see if there's. Yeah, let me see. Bible verse, ninth day. Because I thought it was strange too. It seemed like eighth, like you have the seventh is the complete week, and then the eighth day is just kind of like going into the new creation, new name. Like when you're circumcised, you get a new name. You're like, it's kind of made me think of like it was a new creation. But I thought there was somewhere. 33 passages. It says. Let's see.
Well, I'm looking for ninth and.
Yeah, ninth. Is it the Yom Kippur?
I don't see days. Yeah, Yom Kippur starts on the 9th and goes into
Oh,
the
okay.
tent. Mm,
Maybe that's all I was thinking of, is just when it mentioned that 9th day. That's probably all it was.
Haggai 2:18.
On the 20th day of the 9th month. Oh, wait, 2:18. Consider now from this day upward.
Yeah, that's
The
also
fourth-
the 9th month.
Oh, huh. Yeah, maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I was just thinking
All
of
the ones I'm
the Yom Kippur or something was what I was thinking of. Maybe.
all the ones I'm finding are 9th. Oh, here. No, that's the 9th prince in Numbers 7:20.
It's weird that PBK said that, because even it talks about the 8th day in one of the Gospels, where it talks about, it might be Luke.
Yeah,
We're
I
talking
don't
Sorry.
know what
Jesus.
he was smoking.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I was cut off. You asked something about the 8th day.
Yeah, I was asking if it just kind of alludes to new creation, or like the new heavens and new earth type idea.
Well, it's the one day that, I mean, it's the day has completed, right? On the 7th day, and the 8th day is the first day for us to actually, or what God is hoping for. That is the day that we are supposed to show up and show God what we've managed to do. There's been 7 days worth of creation of God's involvement. Can we step up to the plate and actually act accordingly on the 8th day? And you see that also repeating on, like, on the 8th day for the circumcision, and you see that repeating again the 8th day, let's say, of the wedding and where marriage ceremonies. There's 7th day. There's like 7 days of celebration after the wedding, and then there's the 8th day. And the idea is that, like, you have 7 days, you're not in your mother's womb anymore, but you're being protected by God. You're protected by your mother. You're being protected by your community. At some point, you have to go out there and actually, as a married couple, you're living in now as that new entity. You and him, or him and her, or your significant other have made a bond right now, and now the time is for you to present that sort of to God. Same thing as circumcision. You was 7 days you were protected by your mother. Now you are making your mark and emerging into the world, sort of like on your 8th day. So there's different elements that allude to that as well.
Nice. That makes sense. Makes sense to me.
We got another one.
We do.
I'm joking. Where do I sign? Okay, 8 days, I guess. Okay.
That makes sense to me. That's what I mean. I just wanted to share. Like I said, from my own readings, it seemed like that's what was going on or being alluded to. I had never actually asked, I don't think. So, yeah.
I mean,
Sounds
you could
good.
look in where the Bible also tells us this in Jacob. Do you mind opening up Parashat Tzav?
I am morally opposed to opening up the Torah in Bible study.
Bible study.
Yeah, we never do that in Bible study.
I got mine here.
Where is Tzav? I forget where Tzav is. Where is Tzav?
This up. What's the English word?
Which book of Sefer of Chumash is Tzav in? Not in Genesis.
What do you- I don't know what it is. Spell it.
Hold on. That
Spell it
was
for me.
Tzav.
I want to guess.
Tzav? There it is. Tzav. Leviticus 6. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, command, that's what Tzav means, command Aaron and his sons.
Okay.
I have no
Why
idea
was-
why
why are we
Chezi
looking?
wanted us looking. I think we lost Chezi.
Yeah, I was confused about that. Man, him and his son. What's to do with the? Because we were talking about incense earlier too, and I know it's very specific in Exodus where it talks about the incense and the oil, I think, and it says when you make it like this, make sure that you don't use it for any other purpose. Like you're just making it reserved for this one thing. It's very holy.
Yeah, that's why
So-
we as Jews don't do incense while Christians do.
You don't do incense at all.
Nope.
Because I thought you could do any incense, just not the specific temple incense or something.
We don't use incense for religious purposes because the temple incense belongs to the temple.
Oh. Okay, so you don't even have like, okay, because I thought the temple incense was a very specific, like mixture or something like that.
Oh yeah, I mean we believe that it is a capital sin to create the incense of the
That's
temple.
great.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tzav is where they talk about a lot of the incense. Shmini is the one they talk about the 8th day. But Tzav is where they're dealing with like the incense over there, and then the next verse, the next portion after that starts with V'haya Yom HaShmini, and it was on the 8th day, and that's alluding to like that's the 8th day that's following the 7th day of creation, is the day that they build the tabernacle or they dedicate the tabernacle, and then again that repeats at the temple.
What?
But that is
Wait. All right, so this is the incense that's like, you shall always keep a fire burning on the altar. Like it's always got to be burning, right?
that's in the last in this portion, and then when you go to the next portion,
It's the 8th day, is what you're saying.
it's the 8th day.
What? That's cool.
I believe so.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool. So when these the two sons of Aaron got burned up, was that something to do with the incense? The strange fire?
They brought a strange fire for sure.
And thou shalt not bring strange fires before God.
It is a capital offense, like you just said. Don't do that.
Well, it's. I mean, all these things have a tremendous amount of power to them, right? We see, like, we know that from also what's around you. God is warning the Israelites from that, not because these stuff are gobbledygook, rather because there is truth there. There is power over there. But God is not interested specifically with the people of his covenant for having that kind of relationship, right? So obviously the witch of Endor is still there, right? And he has access to her because he needs that access to her because he no longer has access to the regular means. But the attitude is only do this in the right time, in the right place, in the proper orientation. And that's why originally there's a lot more leniency with let's say the patriarchs or before them to assemble little altars wherever you go. And then at some point there's no point anymore for you building these little altars everywhere. That all should be happening at the Temple Mount. I don't want you having little altars around the land. But as our relationship with God develops, and as a whole society we mature, there's we raise the ante. There's
Very interestingly, Rabbi Bredowitz said that Gentiles are allowed to build bamot these days.
Allowed to build their own little altars? Is that what you
Yep.
Is that what that is? Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we do that all the time.
You could bring sacrifices if you wanted to.
Yeah, it's okay. We do that all the time. Well, that's what I was wondering about burning incense too, because people just burn incense a lot. I would have thought that Jewish people were allowed to, like burn frankincense or something if they wanted. But you said you don't burn any incense at all.
Not as religious.
I would second. All these things go in waves. Like when the East was introduced again to, let's say, to the West, or let's say specifically to the Jewish communities, so there was pushback on that as well. Like even the Rebbe, Jacob's Rebbe, all of our Rebbe, he originally there was resistance to, let's say, yoga and some of these meditative practices. Then there was more opening with this, as long as these practices are only used for medical purposes. Like if we've seen them to be productive, then if they're done in that fashion. And as these things have been, quote unquote, purified, then there's more openness to now people doing like, oh, let's say kosher yoga or things of that nature. So even the incense, originally, all this had to do with, as far as Orthodox Jews were concerned, idol worship. So like, the brands of these incense and the pictures on these incense were very, very much circling around, idol worship and paganism. However, in 2023, can you go inside to a store and buy yourself, let's say, some incense because you're having like a party and you want the smell of, let's say, I don't know, rosemary? That's less of a problem today. But you're not going to find, let's say, in a study hall, like a little corner that has just like incense being lit, basically. But like you could find someone in their house has little incense, but it's just not a practice that people have like they're not really into their crystals here.
Gotcha. You can't burn sage to get rid of ghosts, that sort of thing.
Or it's not that it's not necessarily you can't. It's just not the Jewish way. As in, Jews might say like the Talmud discusses, ideas of the zodiac is just not relevant to us. It's not that they don't exist, and it doesn't that we ignore it. We just look at that as that is not the operating system or the iOS we look at the world through. So I'm not denying. It's just very much we're playing with iPhones, and that would be like an Android software.
I forget who Father Stephen said. There was somebody who early in Christianity converted from Judaism to Christianity, and then he converted back to Judaism because the Christians wouldn't let him do witchcraft or whatever, and he was like, what? I'm going back to Judaism, where we can do
necromancy and
I forget what exactly it was, but like apparently Judaism was like less strict than Christianity, and he was like, okay, forget you Christians, I'm going back to Judaism.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I would say the Christian circles I grew up in are very, very strict about that stuff. Like I wasn't even allowed to celebrate Halloween growing up. And but then like the more I look at Catholicism, I'm like, Catholicism seems pretty pagan in a lot of areas too. Like they have all the trinkets, they have the incense, they got all of it, Like it's.
Listen, growing up, it was also very strict for me. I came to a community where no one would dance anymore, and the pastor wouldn't let us dance. So I spoke to the pastor's daughter, and we got together, and we decided to have a school dance anyways, and they couldn't stop us. And
it sounds like a movie.
It sounds like it's Footloose. But yes.
Okay.
And then he has to go speak in front of the city council and says that David danced, and he uses the Bible to show him that even David danced. And then they dance their I don't know if it's supposed to end like they dance for Jesus, but they all end up dancing.
We weren't,
and that's loosely based on my life.
Chezi watching movies, Hashem Yerachem Aleinu.
Did you not watch Footloose?
I did watch Footloose, but I didn't grow up religious like some people.
First of all, it should be clear. So again, the dynamic was I had my father and I had my mother. I'm very fortunate about that, but my mother was, more ultra Orthodox. And so like my father bought us a lot of Batman comics. I have a whole collection of them, and we would read them together. And my father's mind was very much just about, he's a detective, he works the dark, he's, like my father loved like Darth Vader, the whole idea like
I'm just wondering how Chezi's mom and dad ended up meeting. Like, I have zero clue how these two people ended up marrying each other, but apparently
I was really interested where that was going. His dad
Me
was really
too.
To Batman and Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Yeah, oddly enough, I was allowed to watch Batman, and Batman was okay, but I couldn't watch Power Rangers or Ninja Turtles or any of those things growing up. It was very weird. You would think Batman would be the kind of the creepiest one, but
so when I was a kid, I really loved Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. and my dad found out about it, and he forbade me from watching it, which I couldn't understand at all.
I've never heard of this. Can we look this up?
You've
Pull this
never
stuff up,
heard of
please.
Glow?
No, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling?
They
No, I
actually made a whatchamacallit. They made a Netflix behind the scenes dramatization of
That sounds vaguely familiar. Or I feel like I'd never watched it, but I feel like I might have seen like the title screen Glow or something on Netflix.
yeah, so Netflix made a TV series. So it was in 1986. So it was
We're
whatchamacallit.
looking
It
for
was,
photos here. Where are these gorgeous ladies?
there
What?
must be
What?
pictures.
Yeah, where are these? So they're just lady wrestlers that you would watch.
Yeah, it was wrestling, but it was wrestling with females instead of yeah.
And they're
Official
gorgeous.
website.
That sounds
Yeah.
alright. Yeah.
Their
How is he-
official website is dead.
And he
Here,
forbade you from
IMDb.
watching it.
There you go. Gorgeous ladies of wrestling.
Glow.
Nice,
There's
that's
a
good.
there's a show about that actually. That
There's a
recently came out.
Netflix show
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
So
Mount Fiji. I remember Mount Fiji.
Ooh.
And she had a little sister, Little Fiji. And they were
This-
a tag
this-
team.
this we didn't watch.
Yeah, my dad would. I watched it, and then my dad found out I was watching it, and he forbid me from watching it, which I didn't understand at all why he would forbid me from watching it.
I probably would have been forbidden watching it too. to be
So
honest.
I mean,
My dad-
we weren't allowed to watch. We weren't allowed to watch The Simpsons.
I wasn't either.
And you know, so that wasn't allowed to happen. But the Batman comics, there's no way my mom would have bought them. But my dad bought them. And when my mom would see us reading them, like I would always hear these fights. And she like, Moshe, that's my dad's name. And he's like, Yotis, you have to understand, don't worry about this. You have to, Bruce Wayne is going into the cave. It's his whole Chuva arc. The kids have to learn what he's going through. Okay, great. Anyways, his whole redemptive act. But my mom would then take the comics and all the females would all be markered up, as in like, she would just all like their chest, their legs. Wonder Woman was basically always wearing like, she basically looked like she was living in Iran, but like it was very uncomfortable. So a lot of my comics.
Your mom censored your Batman comic.
That is so funny.
So a lot of
did your
comics.
parents- How did your parents end up getting married? I don't understand.
It's a real question. I mean, they met in kindergarten, and like my dad was into already then. He was the rabbi's son. Also, then he was like still
Wait,
in Tells.
He was into her in kindergarten?
Yeah,
What? That's what girls have cooties. You can't. That's against
he was
the
into her
rules.
for years, and then when he came back to he was out for college. He came back to Cleveland one day, and he went like, I guess he met my mom at this house party or something, and she was talking to him outside, and he was asking her about like if she's dating anyone. She's like, well, I actually had my mind on someone, and he was like, sort of, oh man, and she's like, you, I've been waiting for you. He's like, oh man, it's
Aw,
me.
how romantic.
Let's have kids. Let's have 6 kids, and the youngest one will censor his comics. It'll be great.
Wait, so you're the youngest one?
I have a twin sister, but yeah, I'm the youngest.
You have a twin sister?
How did
I
not
do.
know this?
How did I not know this?
I don't know. I mean, usually people say like, "Oh wow, are you guys identical?" And I'm like, "No, she's a girl, right? But are you guys identical?" And I usually say like, "Yep, yes, we're identical. Yep, you got it. That's how it works."
That's not how it works.
I understand that.
I'm glad you know that. Does your sister know that? Does she also dress all weird?
She one of those gorgeous ladies of wrestling.
He, she
Let
was
me
doing
guess.
her national. Yeah.
Your sister's completely Haredi. She doesn't talk to men. Yeah.
No.
Oh.
She was doing her national. She did her first year of national service up north with this in this place called Chatzor, and there was an adoptive family, and they had one son who was like an Israeli punk, and he fancied my sister, and would joke around with her. He's like, "I'm gonna marry you," and she's like, "That is never gonna happen in a million years. You are the opposite of everything I want." He was persistent, and she did a year abroad in Australia. But when she came back, he was there waiting for her. He's like, "I'll change my act. I'll become this. I'll do that." And he married her. He got her. He got her.
Now
in the end.
he's a rabbi and
No,
studying.
he's not a rabbi. He definitely became like he definitely dresses a lot more like me though. But they live up north. He's a fireman. She's a nurse. And we actually got much closer over the years, but growing up we were not so close. She says it's because I dated her friends. I say for other reasons, who knows? I don't want to place blame right now. That was then. We're friends now.
So you were
So what am I-
seducing all of her friends. You're so
I was seducing. She has a sleepover, and I'm the same age as you. So like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, those are just the facts of the matter. And it was also her friends would be like, "Oh, you have a brother that's the exact same age as us? Why didn't you tell us that?"
And your mom allowed sleepovers of girls?
Well,
And he leaves right when things are getting interesting.
I know, this is really interesting.
I don't know what kind of Orthodox Jews allow sleepovers with boys. That's just
1 second. We weren't all in the same sleeping bag or something. My sister had a sleepover with a friend. When I was dating one of my past girlfriend of mine, where we were quite serious, she was visiting from the States. It was long distance. So when she was visiting, though, for example, she didn't stay at the house. I had my neighbor basically gave her like a room, and she was there. That my parents would not let that happen. Even when I was engaged, that didn't happen. Like my fiance, maybe right before the engagement, my fiance already slept in the house. But like generally speaking, like in like a different room. But generally speaking, even my fiance, when we were together, she was sleeping in someone else's house.
Glad to
Even
hear it. Even now, she won't sleep in the same house as you?
Exactly. It's very uncomfortable.
How's your grandfather doing? You haven't been speaking about your grandfather lately.
Thank God my grandfather's he's doing well. He's still with it. Yeah, he's doing very well. Thank God.
I can't believe you haven't asked him for smicha.
No, I did not. My parents, I don't know. My mom was strict. It was very hard. I mean, it's not that my dad was a very strict dad, but like, I don't know, like religiously, there's also parts of him that were like a lot more open. So I joke around about usually prayer time. My father was very into prayer, but not really into the daily prayer together with the congregation at 5:00 because that's like when they're doing the joint prayer. And my mom would be like, "It's 5:00. It's 5:00. You have to go." And my dad would be like, "What's time? Time's a concept. Our relationship with God is like always happening. Don't worry about this." And she was like, "No. You need to go right now."
So your dad was Hasidic.
I guess in his own way, exactly. My dad was Hasidic in his own way. But my mom was the Rabbi Cook. I mean, her grandfather was Rabbi Cook's student. So that's where my Rabbi Cook comes from. Give us more Bible.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
You said they met in Cleveland or something. So
Yeah.
Is that over in Israel somewhere? or is that in the U.S.?
Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay. So wait, did you grow up in Israel?
All my siblings were born in the States. My parents moved here, and then a year later had me and my twin sister.
Okay, so you were born. Okay, I see.
Born and raised in Israel, with all that comes with Israeli attitude and Israeli hand motions.
How many?
Ryan
Really,
is
Jim?
obviously not aware of how we do Bible study here. Out of curiosity, does Chezi have a copy of any of Abraham or Tzvi Cook's books? I'm sure he has copies of every single one of them.
No, not every single book, but I have a lot of his books. Yes, for sure.
Who's Abraham
Definitely.
Cook? His son?
The pops.
Abraham? Hold on. Who? Abraham is the pops? What? Rav Cook was Tzvi Cook, right? No? Great, we lost Fezzi again. And now
I
I'm
don't
going to have
know.
to look up Rav Cook.
Right, there was something I was going to ask about.
Yeah, I guess Rav Abraham Yitzchak Cook was the father, and Tzvi Yehuda Cook was his son. Wow. So this is the Wikipedia page. It says,
Oh yeah.
was a prominent ultra-nationalist Orthodox rabbi.
Ultra-nationalist.
Ultra-nationalist.
Nice.
You have to love Wikipedia. Anything Wikipedia says is completely 100% true, always.
That or ChatGPT yesterday also made up some beautiful midrash for me.
Yeah?
Something else.
Ultra-nationalist.
Oh, there was a question I was going to ask. I just remembered it. It's not related to anything we were talking about, though. But there's a part in Exodus where they make the temple, and it's called the Tabernacle of Meeting or something like that. How it's translated in English. And then Moses sets up his tent outside the camp and calls his own tent the Tabernacle of Meeting. Is there like commentary on that, or what do you guys think about that? That's always struck me as really interesting.
Say that again. Moses calls it Ohel Moed. Yeah. What else calls it? Where else? Ohel Moed?
I'll find a. I don't have my normal Bible with me. I usually know right where these things are.
Is Ohel written with an ayin or a aleph?
I don't know.
Am I misspelling Ohel?
Tablets of
Yes,
stone.
I misspelled Ohel. Ohel is spelled with an aleph. Yes. So Ohel Moed. There we go. Here we go. Ohel Moed. 8,000 places.
8,000 places. And what is this word?
142 in the Tanakh. Ohel Moed is tent of meeting. Numbers 1:1. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe b'midbar Sinai be'ohel Moed, in the tent of meeting.
Golly, where is it? I wish I could find it. No, because that's talking about the. I don't know if it's after the golden calf. I can't remember.
I mean, just in the Torah, Ohel Moed shows up.
Well, there's
once in Deuteronomy, 54 times in Numbers, 41 times in Leviticus, 33 times in Exodus, and 0 times in Genesis.
Do you know the part where Moses he sets up his tent outside the camp? When is that? Is that after the right after the golden calf? Or after he breaks the I can't remember. That's right after that, because he gives them all the instructions to make the tabernacle of meeting, and then he, before they even make it, it says Moses calls his own tent that when he sets it up outside the camp. And then Joshua, I think, stays in it the entire time or something like that. I'm just going to Google it. Let me see. Maybe I can find it.
I have zero clue what you're talking about, Willis.
Let's see. This says Exodus 33, verse 7 through 11 is what this is saying.
Exodus
33. As I was just looking there, I couldn't find it. And Moses took the tabernacle and pitched it without the camp, afar off from the camp, and called it the tabernacle of the congregation. So is that his? I'm guessing that's his tent, right? Or is that the actual?
Let's see what Rashi says. Rashi says,
Let's see what he says.
Yikach expresses an action continually going on. He used to take his tent and pitch it without the camp. He said, excuse me, one who has been placed under an interdict by the master must be placed under an interdict by his disciples, since God had stated that he would not dwell amongst the people. Moses, the disciple, also felt compelled to remove from the midst.
Okay. Meeting place for those who saw Torah.
I'm trying to see if anybody says whether this is the or his. Seems to me it must have been just his own.
Yeah, which I thought was strange. So the New King James that I normally read said it's Moses' tent, but this one seems to be a little more ambiguous in the King James. But it's still, it seems like it would be Moses's, because I would think if it was the normal tabernacle, then only Aaron would be going in. This makes it sound like it's Moses's tent, but it's called the same thing, because he called it went out into the tabernacle. Okay, so and Moses took up the tabernacle and pitched it out without the camp, afar off from the camp, and called it the tabernacle of the congregation. So he calls it that. And then it came to pass, everyone which sought the Lord went out into the tabernacle of the congregation, which was out without the camp. And it came to pass, when Moses went out unto the tabernacle, that all the people rose up and stood every man at his tent door and looked after Moses until he was gone into the tabernacle. And it came to pass, as Moses entered into the tabernacle, the cloudy pillar descended and stood at the door of the tabernacle. Miniature version, like Moses' own tent is a miniature version of the true tabernacle. Because even God says, when he's talking about them and talking about the ark that they're going to make, he says that's where I'm going to sit with you. And it says, and the Lord talked with Moses. So he's speaking to him.
So I have no idea who this Rabbi Asher Wazir Teal is, Birkat Asher, but he says he reads Rashi and the Targum Onkelos as both saying that this is not this was his own, and I mean, so he specifically says, and I understand from the arguments what he's making why it would be that you would say, yeah, this is Moses' own tent especially so apparently the Midrash and Rashi and Onkelos all talk about how um, if this teaches us that if you don't have access to like the temple, you still have access to like the sages and people like Moses.
Okay, so here's maybe another question that kind of maybe connects. Is it since well you said the sages, but do you still have access even within your own self, like your own? Is everybody kind of their own? Because I guess we're thinking of
That doesn't make sense with the word tent of meeting. Tent of meeting is a place of meeting.
Yeah, to where God can speak with you about the atonement seat.
Right. God speaks with you, but also, I mean,
I'm curious too because if it's Moses' tent, it seems like it's a miniature version of the true tabernacle, and Moses, there's something about his tent where there's almost like, I mean, the ark's not in there, but God says He's going to speak from the ark, from that atonement seat that is, I think, on the ark, and that's not in Moses' tent, or presumably isn't, but yet God's still speaking with him face to face in his own tent. And then on top of it, Josh was in there, who I don't think is a Levite, and he like never leaves the tabernacle.
Right. So, I mean, we have this idea of the Beit Midrash, the study hall, being in a way the temple, right? It has, and when you study Torah, you are, in a very real sense, becoming close to God like you would be at the temple.
Okay. Yeah, because it kind of reminded me, and when you were talking about it was Ezekiel 11:16. I was thinking of where God says, "Even though you're scattered far off, I will be like a little sanctuary in all trees where you shall come."
Ezekiel.
I don't know if that word's the same as like the tabernacle of meeting. No.
Ezekiel 11:16.
Yeah.
לכן אמור כה אמר השם אלוקים כי הרכחתי בגויים וכי חפיצותים בארצות והיא להם למקדש מעט. That's interesting. So we use this term mikdash ma'at to refer to synagogues and Beit Midrash, the little sanctuary.
The little sanctuary. So what's that? What's the little sanctuary? Just
So mikdash means place of holiness. So the temple is called Beit HaMikdash, the house of holiness. And here it's called Mikdash Ma'at, meaning a place of holiness that is small or a bit of. Yeah.
I think I cut out for a second. Place of holiness.
And Rashi says a minor sanctuary, synagogues, which are in the position second to the temple. You weren't looking while I was showing. Mikdash Ma'at.
So is there also a correlation between the temple, the tabernacle in Exodus, and the most holy place, Ark of the Covenant, all that, and the Song of Songs? I'm assuming there's probably there.
Say that again.
The book of Song of Songs or Song of Solomon, and there's probably a connection with that and the most holy, right?
So Shir HaShirim is sometimes referred to as the Holy of Holies, yes.
And Shir HaShirim.
So Song of Songs is Shir HaShirim, and the Holy of Holies is Kodesh Kodashim, and sometimes people will refer to Shir HaShirim as Kodesh Kodashim, as the holy
Wow.
of holies of the scriptures.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Black Mask says, from what I understand, a key principle of the Kabbalah of the Arizal is that Torah study is a method of unification of the lower realm of the human mind with God. Yeah, I mean, I am no expert in the Kabbalah of the Arizal, but this is certainly something that the Alter Rebbe teaches in Tanya. And he teaches things based on the Kabbalah of the Arizal. I have no idea who Black Mask is and how he knows all this stuff about Judaism.
I don't know. Yeah, he popped in here. He's been in the chat quite a bit. Ryan.
Tonight he has. And Ryan thinks we're bizarre because he has not been watching. Like he's not used to our Bible study going all over the place. Oh, it's Kirk.
Yeah.
Yes, I did not realize it was you, Kirk.
Oh, that makes sense.
It does make sense.
My video finished uploading.
I was wondering if it was Kirk.
All right, got it. Kirk, I haven't seen Kirk in a long time.
Me neither.
I ran into this video of Alex Jones rants as an indie folk song. You come across these things? Apparently, there's whole like.
They're hilarious.
I had not even seen them before. They are hilarious. It was great. I was trying to upload a video to our band page, and it was like in the side thing, and I was like, "What is this?" Yeah, it was so good. He can't join the stream. Are you grounded?
Well, I kind of told him it's best if he spends some time in the comments.
Oh, okay.
Because when he joins the streams, he tends to like interrupt Chazi and stuff a bit too much. So I told him chill in the comments a little, and then
Yeah.
you can,
Yeah.
yeah.
I see. That makes sense. Yeah, those things are hilarious, though. Apparently the guy who does those songs is from Chattanooga, where, like, in some guys I know. Well, we just got a new bass player, and he was saying that he knew the guy and everything. He used to play at one of the venues in Chattanooga all the time.
Well, it seems like the rest of the country has become crazy enough that like no creativity is allowed. So all the creative stuff comes from the South, apparently.
I'm dropping that link in there. That's my band. Go watch it, everybody.
Advertising your band.
Have you ever watched the show on HBO called Eastbound and Down?
Kirk, if you want to join, you can join just as long as you remember to be polite and not interrupt people all the time. And hopefully I won't have to kick you off again.
When was he
We
on
love
last?
you, Kirk. You just need to chill a little.
When was he on last? I haven't seen him in like months.
It's been a while, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah,
of course, you haven't been on for a while.
I know. I've missed a lot the past few months, it seems like.
How dare you?
I'm glad I made it tonight. It's nice.
Me too.
Yeah. I know. It's just been, well, I was crazy busy with work, and then it seemed like something was always coming up with that. And then after I quit. There he is. Cool kid. Ooh. Nice. Mr. Cool Man.
Hey, Kirk.
Thank you. You're a good man.
I try to be.
How have you been?
I've been good. I just decided to read some of Mishneh Torah, Transmission of the Oral Law, because I figured that would be a pretty good introduction to some of the more basic ideas of Jewish theology after the Second Temple period. Yeah, I mean, I miss you guys, but I'm glad you let me come back.
I miss you too. So, do you read a lot?
Sometimes.
What do you normally do with your free time?
I mean, sometimes I read, sometimes I spend time with family, and sometimes just sort of bullshit.
Okay, nice. It seems like you read a lot because you know all these questions. I don't even know how to ask half the questions you ask. So you seem pretty well informed. That's why I didn't know.
get the feeling Kirk spends way too much time watching internet debates. That's the feeling I get.
Is that what you do? You watch a lot of internet debates?
Sometimes, I mean, yeah, sometimes I watch political debates or other things, but
sometimes those are interesting. So, Jacob, have you heard of this guy named Perry Stone?
No, who is Perry Stone?
He's like kind of a televangelist preacher that's in the town I live in. There's so many churches in my town, but I don't know that he runs his church anymore because he got caught up in a sex scandal, and I heard he got punched in the face by some military man. But he would go to Israel every year, and he would take a group of people with him, and he had his show that he would do called Manifest or something like Manna, though Manna Fest.
Okay.
I don't know. I was just curious if you had ever heard of him. He's probably not that popular, but
I have
didn't
not
know
heard of him. But
he
he
might be one of
sounds
those
like
people.
he sounds like Chazi seducing all of his twin sisters' friends.
Yeah. But he talks a lot about, or he tries to talk a lot about time prophecy. I can't remember why I thought of him today. Oh, because I was listening to, I listened to some of the conversation on Grail Country where Jed was on there and they were talking about stuff in the book of Revelation. And they were saying how Revelation is very similar to Jeremiah. And it seems like Revelation is honestly pulling on a lot of stuff from the Old Testament everywhere. But then that made me think of Perry Stone because he would always, weirdly, a lot of times in Christianity, they'll talk about Revelation and just pair it with the book of Daniel and not really talk about where it references everything else or Jeremiah or anything else. They're just like, they only take those two books. I don't know why. But he's had like whole series on like the end time stuff. I don't know if he ever gave a date or not. That's happened quite a bit before too.
Yeah, I think Christians oftentimes focus on Daniel specifically because of A, the Son of Man stuff, but also B, like a lot of Christians feel like that is, and frankly, I think it actually is the best arguments that Christianity has as far as like things must have happened during the Second Temple period and stuff like that. And I mean, James White, when I was listening to him before this, he was talking about, yeah, it's not possible for anybody to meet the requirements um, of the Messiah because there isn't a temple and stuff like that. And all of that, like Daniel stuff, makes a lot of sense until you actually read Daniel in context and see what Daniel is saying. Because, I mean, if you read Daniel, here, let's pull up Daniel.
I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, to be honest. The king of the east shall go fight the king of the north, and then the king of the south will be upset, and then he'll take his daughter, and he'll steal this other daughter. And the last like 2 chapters is crazy.
Yeah, there's plenty of stuff that's like very, very crazy. But let's read the last few lines of Daniel chapter 12, verse 10. Many shall purify themselves and make themselves white and be tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate be set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Happy is he who waits and reaches 1,335 days. But go thou thy way till the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand up for thy allotted portion at the end of days. Like, the one clear thing that Daniel says is wait. Right?
Mhm.
Like, that's the most clear message of the entire book of Daniel. Like, when you read it in context, he's like, wait. Like, yeah, there's all these things, but wait. And like
Blessed
everybody
is he
who
that
points
waiteth.
to whatchamacallit, to Daniel is like, yeah, see, the Messiah must be here, and it's like, it says wait.
Jacob.
Yes.
So, from what I understand, a generally accepted belief is there's not going to be a second coming of the Messiah. So, if the Messiah dies naturally, he's not going to resurrect. So, like, I don't believe like there's any Orthodox rabbi that I know that says a dead person can be the Messiah. Is that true, or
So
like
I
the Lubavitcher
okay.
Rebbe was not the Messiah?
Okay, so there is an idea in Judaism, which, while it has clearly been rejected by Judaism, it is possible. We cannot say that it is heretical to say that, for example, David himself might eventually be the Messiah, or even Daniel might be the Messiah, or that it's possible that after the resurrection of the dead, the Messiah that there shall be a kingly ruler from those who have been resurrected. That is not the same thing as saying somebody will start their messianic mission, as in be anointed the Messiah, as in do messianic things, and then die and then come back. So the key thing that the rabbis are very adamant on is when the Messiah starts his doing what Messiahs do, he will also finish it. And if he fails in his attempts, then, as Maimonides says, he may be like any of the kosher and good people who were trying to do that which God wants and failed, but that he is no longer somebody who could be the Messiah. So while I completely reject any concept that, for example, the Rebbe could be the Messiah, and it is heretical to say that the Rebbe started something messianic and therefore he will somehow be the Messiah. There are people who have this idea that the resurrection of the dead will happen and that the Rebbe will be somehow anointed king. And while I think that is foolish and wrong, I would not say that is necessarily categorically heretical in such a way as disqualifies someone from being an Orthodox Jew, but that's mostly because within Judaism, we do not police our boundaries very tightly at all, and it is incredibly important to us not to over-define our religion in ways that are not necessary. And when it comes to practical differences, any such belief someone may have has no practical implication whatsoever in terms of halacha, and so it's not something we necessarily care about. I hope that was clear.
It was clear. I guess the idea is the distinction is: do you believe someone is currently the Messiah but died, or do you believe they're just simply going to be the Messiah in the future? But that would still basically disqualify all Christians and Jews for Jesus, at least that I know.
So this is something I would not be able to say if Rabbi Skobach had not said it himself. Rabbi Skobach is a well-respected anti-missionary rabbi who works for Jews for Judaism, and he has said that oftentimes Jews have certain beliefs about why we reject Christianity, which have little to do with the actual reasons why we reject Christianity. We reject Christianity because it is idolatry and polytheism. The idea that a human being can in some way be God himself is idolatry. The idea that there are 3 canonical hypostases of God is polytheism. Jason has never heard this before. Christianity, on the whole, believes that Jesus somehow atones for the sins of other people, which is completely outside of anything we believe in Judaism. One of the 13 principles of faith is that God rewards people according to their righteousness and condemns people according to their wickedness. And so we completely reject this idea of vicarious atonement or anything like that. And we believe in the eternal nature of God's laws. And so there's plenty of teachings within Christianity which are completely heretical to Judaism. All of that has very little to do with the idea that when Christians say Jesus is the Messiah, what they actually mean to say is Jesus will be the Messiah. And the refutation of that is in the Christian Bible itself, in Acts 5, that quotes Gamliel, who gives the Jewish position there quite clearly, which is, who asked you who the Messiah is going to be? Like, who are you to make that decree, and why would you be so stupid as to have a particular candidate and find yourself possibly fighting against God? That's just silly and stupid.
Yeah, so the main criticism of Christianity from a Jewish perspective is not just is Jesus Messiah, but all the baggage that comes in sort of Pauline and post-Pauline theology.
All kinds of things. The Trinity, the abrogation of the law, the vicarious atonement, the idea that the Messiah has already come. So all forms of preterism, like there's a lot, like if you cleaned Christianity of all the gunk and silliness of it, then maybe we could start talking about like the
That'd be
little things about Jesus will be the Messiah or not. But like those are tiny things next to the fact that like Christians are polytheists and idolaters.
Well, so I've heard Christians
Well-
explain the Trinity as like you can have three parts of something, but it still be one God. So one God.
According to Christianity, that explanation is called
Heretical.
Is heretical. Yeah, it is
Every
very hard.
explanation of Trinity I've heard in Christianity is called heretical by one denomination or another. They all call it
Right.
heretical, and the only way you get around it is to say it's history, brother. You can't know it, and it's been really frustrating. I honestly think the only way it makes sense in my head is the way I've described it to you, Jacob, where it's not even three things. It's just the unity of multiplicity. It's where Christ says in John 17 that God will be all in all, basically. So it's not three anymore. It's just pulling everything back into a oneness with God through different forms of mediation.
I jokingly and not so jokingly say that I found the one place in the Christian Bible where Jesus talks about the Trinity.
Where is it?
In Matthew, he says, before the crow sounds, you will betray me 3 times.
Oh,
That's the only reference to the Trinity that I have found in the entirety of the Christian Bible. Yes, you will betray me 3 times.
There's also at the end of the Gospel of John, Jesus asked Peter if he loves him 3 times. So there's another 3 things there.
Yeah, I mean,
where is
like
it? Yeah. There's
this number 3, like this emphasis in 3, you would think that if Jesus really is God to come to earth and incarnate, and he came to teach that he is God incarnate, and there's this thing called the Trinity, he would actually say something like, God is 1 and 3 and 3 and 1 or something like that. But even Jesus doesn't say that.
No, I mean, no, yeah, he really doesn't. Honestly, to me, it just seems like, yeah, I mean, I don't even know where the doctrine of the Trinity necessarily came from, but it just kind of seems
idolatry.
Like a way to express that things exist relationally is the only way I know how to describe it. Honestly, to me, I think the clearest I see the Trinity in the Bible that I would probably point to is maybe when Jesus, well, probably in Genesis, but when Jesus says, what God has joined together, let no man separate. So just the idea of matrimony, like a man and a wife becoming one with God, binding them or something, what God has joined together. And then I'm like, there's the,
you have such a heretic, Jason.
Becoming one, and that what's making the 2 become one. It's like there's a third thing in there that's binding them together, and it's, you could call it God, you could call it lust, whatever it is. There's different forms of it.
Didn't tons of Christians kill each other over the idea that the Holy Spirit is female?
Yeah. The Holy Spirit is what?
Female?
I mean,
I don't know. Maybe.
Like, the Holy Spirit, isn't that the one that impregnated Mary? How would that be female?
Good question.
I mean, transsexual female? Maybe?
Christianity is just confusion. Let's just...
Two-part. What? It makes sense to me.
It's just confusion. That's all it is. It's confusion.
From my understanding, on a halakhic level, Gentile Christians are not considered idolaters.
According to most people, yes. Most people will say Shituf is not. It is not the same as idolatry. I would say that the monarchical trinity is the sin of Enosh is not nearly as bad as the rest of the idolatry of most Christianity, but the egalitarian trinity, like It's difficult. It's difficult.
We're in trouble. I do have a question though about something you said earlier, because I've run into that within Christianity as well, which has been kind of strange to me. But you said that when you're talking about the idea of atoning for someone else's sins, and I remember I've talked to you about this to you before, where it seems to me like in small ways that's just kind of what forgiveness is, where you can kind of forgive somebody and you're taking the wrong upon yourself, basically. You're
I mean,
letting them
that's
go.
the type of thing I do talk about, but that's not vicarious atonement. That doesn't mean that God is not punishing people for their sins. Like
Yeah. Okay.
it's yeah. So penal substitutionary atonement, the way Protestants understand it, like that's just clearly heretical.
Is there a way, if we're not even talking about Jesus, is there ideas where you could actually do that for someone else? Because I mean, do we see that happen in reality? As far
I
as like
mean,
where you, like a mother taking a place for a child or something like that, or a father for a
but
son?
no, that's the Bible clearly condemns that. So Ezekiel
In this,
18,
oh yeah, the sour grapes, yeah,
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 the
yeah.
Bible clearly condemns the idea of a parent atoning for their child or a child for their parent, right? The,
Yeah,
and it condemns it in very strong terms. It says you should never say such a thing. It is blasphemy. Like the Bible specifically talks about it as blasphemy.
yeah. I guess when I read that in Ezekiel, it seems like almost like you're trying to scapegoat someone else rather than you're trying to take the place of someone else, like rather than like a self-sacrificial thing. You're like, go.
A father wanting to take, like there's nothing there's
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 nothing.
nothing more normal than a father wanting to take the sins, or actually, I mean, I guess more in ancient times than present day, but like a child wanting to atone for their parents, right?
Yeah, I
That's
guess that does make
normal.
sense. You people, yeah, you hear that. I've heard that in Hindu stories too. People will take these great pilgrimages of like atonement to kind of clear their ancestors' names or things like that. I don't know. It's just interesting because even like I mean, even I've even spoken to some Christians and they'll say only God can forgive, and I'm just like, wait, clearly, like very clearly in the gospel, Jesus says that God has given the power of forgiveness to men, and that's why it's just kind of weird to me to run into it in Christianity. I didn't know if that was in Judaism or not. But
So this is
sorry.
one of my little things with so where is that in the Christian
Matthew 9.
Gospels?
It's the
It's
paralytic
Matthew.
story. Yeah, it should be Matthew 9, I think.
That's Matthew 9. Okay, so let me pull up Matthew 9.
And I think it's around that same place where Jesus says, "Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice." And he's like,
Okay. No, this isn't the one I'm thinking of. The one where somebody drops in from the top of a thing. You know what I'm
yeah,
talking
that
about?
should be. Yeah, it should be that one. It's in multiple gospels though. You might be thinking of the same passage in Mark. Let me see. Matthew 9. He entered into a ship. No, wait. Sorry, it's Matthew. It starts. Where does it start? Wait, is it wrong?
There
Maybe it is wrong.
was one of them where like the room was really full and they dropped someone in from the roof.
Yeah. Yeah, where is this? I thought it was 9. Yeah, I'm looking at the wrong thing then. The leper, palsy cured. Yeah, no, it is 9. He entered a ship and passed by and came into the sea, and behold, they brought him a man sick of the palsy, lying on a bed, and Jesus, seeing their faith, said unto the sick man, Son, be of good cheer, thy sins are forgiven thee. It is that same one. Let me find where it's in Mark though, because Mark it probably talks about him coming through the roof. It's either that or Luke. I don't know. One of these.
Yeah,
Let's
Mark
see.
2.
Oh,
Here it is.
okay. Yeah, it should be the same like story, just different gospel, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, so Mark 2. Okay,
Uh-huh.
a few days later, when Jesus again entered Capernaum, the people heard that he had come home. They gathered in such large numbers that there was no room left, not even outside the door, and he preached the word to them. Some men came, bringing to him a paralyzed man carried by 4 of them. Since they could not get him to Jesus because of the crowd, they made an opening in the roof above Jesus by digging through it, and then lowered the mat the man was lying on. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralyzed man, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Now, some teachers of the law were sitting there, thinking to themselves, "Why does this fellow talk like that? He's blaspheming. Who can forgive God the sins but God alone?" Immediately, Jesus knew in his spirit that this was what they were thinking in their hearts, and he said to them, "Why are you thinking these things? Which is easier, to say that to this paralyzed man, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Get up, take your mat, and walk'? But I want you to know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins." So he said to the man, "I tell you, get up, take your mat, and go home." He got up, took his mat, and walked out in full view of them all. This amazed everyone, and they praised God, saying, "We have never seen anything like this." Now, this is one of my examples of the crayon. And what's the crayon?
Where they
These
added
3
in.
verses. These
Which
3
one?
verses is crayon. Because
Immediately.
let's take
Oh.
these 3 verses out,
Okay.
and let's change Son of Man, capital S, capital M, with humanity.
Yeah.
And let's turn this into a Jewish story, which is a rabbi is teaching and he gets interrupted by someone who wants to be healed. And that's an offense to the dignity of the rabbi, yet the rabbi forgives him and explains to the people, "Hey, you know what? It's a greater healing in spiritually healing someone by forgiving them than by physically healing them." This is so much a better story and a better understanding and a Jewish story of a rabbi than the silly question that supposedly these teachers of the law had in their hearts, which how did Mark know what people were thinking in their minds?
Okay. Yeah.
And
well,
I believe
supposedly
teachers of the
Jesus
law.
did. But
What?
sorry. Go ahead, Kirk. Sorry.
From what I understand, teachers of the law. This is referring to the Pharisees.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, Mark is making up some Jews he doesn't like and having them ask stupid questions.
Well, the weird thing is, that's what I mean. I run into Christians that say the same thing. It's like the teachers are just people in church anyway that are like, no, only God can forgive sins. But that's the reason I brought up the Matthew one, is because the one in Matthew, it says they marveled and glorified God who had given such power unto men. But doesn't the weird Son of Man thing in there? It actually has men, like humanity.
Yeah. Although Mark is apparently earlier than Matthew. But
Gotcha.
it's like the Christian.
But Son of Man just means son of Adam. Yeah.
The Christian, the crayon just takes Jesus, a rabbi, and turns him into an egotistical asshole.
It's interesting because I feel like when most people read that, or at least a lot of people when they read that, they'll read Son of Man and read it like it says Son of God or something, and it just says Son of Man, and I'm like, it says like it says in Ezekiel all the time. But
Oh, there are plenty of places where the King James version has Son of God, but in the older versions, it's actually Son of Man. But some Christian scribe changed it from Son of Man to Son of God. Yeah.
Um, can I give a story on that?
Sure.
Yes.
So
Ooh, yeah.
one time I was talking to a Christian that like a Christian friend I know, and he was saying
Why
that
would you do that?
Jacob. So, and he was basically saying the reason Jesus has to be God is because basically the idea that humanity lives in sin because of original sin, which he claimed was shared between Judaism and Christianity. I didn't even
It's
want to
not.
argue. I mean, I know it's not, but Christians and like basically there had to be a perfect person to die on behalf of humans, because how can humans who by definition live in sin like atone for sin without some sort of intermediary? But like Judaism does not, to my knowledge, believe in anything equivalent to original sin. Um like in Judaism, you're not perfect, you have the Yetzer Hara, but you have the ability to pursue like the good instinct and the
Beyond
no.
that, you have the ability to repent, and God can forgive you.
Yeah, and this is really what I don't get, like that Judaism and Christianity somehow shared a vision of original sin, and that man has to be perfect to be loved by God. Like everyone can be some level of sinner but still try to achieve to be better than they were yesterday. Like
Right.
repentance is the most important theme of Judaism.
Right. You're right. Yeah. Christianity is just silly.
Well,
Um
well, the weird thing is, well, that's I mean, the idea of repentance and forgiveness makes total sense to me. I thought that was a Christian thing. That's why, it's surprising to hear it, because you hear. I mean, growing up, you would like, I mean, especially before the internet, and you can have all these conversations just in your own little bubble, and you hear stuff like, well, I mean, you hear things about all the different denominations too, and how they're all wrong. But then you'd hear like Judaism's just about the law, and it's just about doing good, like doing enough deeds to get to heaven. And it's like, no, that's
well,
and when
people
you
that
talk
say
to people, it's
Judaism
not
is
about that at all.
well, what I was just going to say is people that say Judaism is just about the law, it's like they look at Protestants who say the law doesn't matter at all, it's just about having faith in Jesus, and they go the opposite direction. But it's like
Yeah,
Judaism is not against Protestantism. Judaism is by and for Judaism. And Judaism,
yeah,
although it has faith in the law, it doesn't expect complete conformity to the law. It just expects you to be better than you were yesterday, at least to my knowledge.
Yeah. No, this is the yeah.
yeah.
So William Brand says, but if you freely edit, there is no scripture. You are absolutely right. The New Testament is not actually scripture.
So here's one thing I would probably refer to as well, that I don't. I mean, it's in the Gospel of John, so that one's kind of a little crazy. It's kind of the weird gospel. But he says, I think that's where Jesus says salvation is of the Jews.
Mm.
And you don't really hear that come up too much in Christian circles, because it's
Jesus was a
usually
racist.
salvation is of is of Christianity, but Jesus himself said salvation is of the Jews, and that's what I mean when I'll say things like I think it gets back to the God of Israel, like those that wrestle with God and man. Like if you love God, love man, and you do those simultaneously, and that seems to me to be most akin to salvation, and repentance and forgiveness work in all of that to bring things back into unity and oneness with God. But I did have a question about original sin, actually, because my sister actually sent me a message, and she was reading something, and it said in there that it was basically, I don't know if it was arguing against some sort of Christian idea, but it was saying that sin. It said, like, contrary to the Christian idea, sin is actually just missing the mark. And I was like, I thought that was the Christian idea, but isn't that basically the term? Is sin means to miss the mark?
There is a term for sin, chet, which does mean to miss the mark. That we would say that unintentional sins, which everyone sins at least unintentionally, is missing the mark. There is a possibility of greater sins as well, of deliberate sins, of
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah, it seemed to me like there was the tone of the book kind of concerned me because it seemed like it could be going in a route where it's trying to really make light of sin, and I was like, I don't really want to go that route either. But then I was just wondering, even in terms of original sin, like I don't agree with the really what's that? I mean the really kind of, I mean we've talked about it before, the type of original sin that you bring up that you've heard about in Christianity. I don't agree with that kind. But there's a weird way where if we're trying to be in God's image and God is infinitely good, it's like we're always missing the mark, you know, because we're just a small part of the body. So we're kind of born lacking, if that makes sense, or missing
The
mark.
verse says, "Ein tzaddik ba'aretz v'lo chata." There is no righteous man on earth who has not sinned, and it's talking about a righteous man, right? It doesn't say there are no wicked men on earth who have not sinned. It says there are no righteous men. So even a person who has sinned, right, can be referred to as a righteous man because it is the human condition to fail to be godly. That's just part of being a human being.
Is it okay if I ask something, Jacob?
Sure.
So in the Tanakh, is there a reason why Moshe was forbidden from entering Eretz Israel for hitting a rock, but David was forgiven despite cheating with Bathsheba? And
So you have to understand that we believe that that like when the Bible ascribes very heinous sins to people like David, that those should not be taken absolutely literally, because when people of great stature sin even in minor details, because they are such holy people so close to God, God is far more harsh in his judgment on them. And so the way I usually put it is, so the Bible has to be understood by the man who walks into his Las Vegas hotel room after a night of gambling away all of his money and a bunch of money he didn't have on hookers and blow and all kinds of sin, and sees his Bible and opens it up and starts reading. It has to be understood by that man, and it also has to be understood by the rabbi who has lived a pure life his entire life and is reading the story of David and Bathsheba for the 100th, if not the 1000th time in his old age. And the Bible has to speak to both those people at the same time. And so a cursory reading of the Bible would show that David committed murder and adultery and many horrible things. But when you take a close look, like the Talmud does, you see that actually God is very, very exacting on those who are close to him. And we would generally say that the actual sins that David committed were far more minor infractions than the judgment that is plainly brought in the Bible, because he was a holy person who had nevuah, had prophecy, and God demanded greater of him than he would. So for him to make a mistake, for example, in in judgment of not putting someone to death when he should have could also be considered like murder would be for a much lesser person.
I think that makes sense, but is the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu was like very close to God but punished relatively harshly.
Right. So, like, what exactly the sin of Moshe was is a very big question, but it was something to do with not having the amount of faith that someone who was as close to God should have had in order for the world to be perfected. And all of everyone in the Bible fails to be perfect because that is the condition of man, even the greatest of the shepherds and the patriarchs.
Hence
Yes,
our
Fezzi.
circumcision. Well, I'm saying we're not perfect, hence we circumcise ourselves to remind ourselves that we must work constantly on perfecting ourselves and building ourselves, which is also the difference in a certain way between Christianity and Judaism. We're not looking to be saved, we're looking to rebuild together. And I'd also just mention about God and the transgressions of, let's say, holy people like David. There's a saying in Hebrew, which is the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the God medakdek im tzadikim kechut hase'ara. That God is very is with righteous people. He is extremely specific. It talks about like the width of of like a hair, which basically like what would be okay for a child or like a layman to do with very pious people or people that should know better. There's a lot less wiggle room, so to speak. However, unlike Shaul, King Saul, David immediately goes to Nathan and repents and understands how he transgressed. So, I mean, that's also like a huge difference between, God is always welcoming one to return and to repent. But if one doesn't do that, he gets his kingdom ripped away from him. Also, there are some that interpret that while David sinned, he knew with his wisdom that ultimately this is a purposeful sin, which is because I do have to. This ultimately will be my wife, and unfortunately, the way it came to be was problematic, and obviously some of the sages have a hard time with it. But even that wasn't coming necessarily from a bad place. It was coming from a place of trying to fulfill his destiny.
Yeah, well, certainly problematic. In the Bible, there's not always the best treatment of women and feminist issues. Like,
No, that's not true. That's just I have to say, when you read the Bible in context, the Bible is as feminist as I think any reasonable
like
person
you can
should
take
be.
non-Jewish women as captives in wartime.
Yafet Tar. Okay, no.
Let me
no.
take this for a second before I go off, because I need to go into work. Just as an example. So I was going to use slavery, but Eshet Yafat Tor. So you have to put things into context, which is what's going on in the world at the time, okay? And women during wartime being raped, killed, maimed, murdered, and then many times brought back to this Viking tent and becoming basically property or worse. So Judaism at the time, the Hebrews are trying to deal with this and also curb certain behavior. And they're saying there will be battle. And if there is battle, we know what the other nations do. So the Torah is already letting you know now, in the context of its time, that we don't want you doing this. However, because we're aware of human nature and we're aware, and just like I had to take you out of the desert and you have to be there for 40 years, this is a process. So when you guys are dealing right now with conquering the land, there is no taking women willy-nilly. And if you are going to take a woman, then we're gonna create a tremendous amount of guidelines around it, which is, you first have to shave her head off, and you have to make sure she looks ugly to make sure that the reason you took her was not because you were just lustful. Rather, you love this person, and you're going to let this person now cry for her father and her father's house for 30 days because you want to be able to hear that, and we want you to realize that that's really not what you wanted. And after all that process is done, then yes, you can marry her. And you have to assume that that kind of practice really curbed a lot of that behavior, that barbaric behavior aside. And if anything, at that time, was championing women's rights and recognizing how women like this, the Torah is trying to, as best it can at the time, protect both the Tselem Elohim of the Israelites and the people they would capture as well.
I understand that line of reasoning, Hezi, but if the Bible's confident enough in human nature that it legislates that you have to wear tefillin every day, and you can't eat shellfish, and you can't mix wool and linen, why can't it be perfect enough to completely ban the practice instead of just...
because that's not how the Torah works. And
Well,
that's not how the Torah works. Yeah,
I have a question.
I'll let you take it.
If it didn't say anything, what's the alternative? You would just leave them widows, right?
Well, that's a whole other thing. But part of what the Torah has come to teach us, and always comes to teach us, is that the Torah is not there to break you, right? It is there to point you towards an ideal and to demand that you be ever improving. So there are many instances all through the Torah of people not acting ideally. For example, the patriarchs marrying multiple wives. There's not a single instance of polygamy in the entirety of the Bible that isn't an example of disaster. Every single story of polygamy in the entire Bible is a story of disaster.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I guess I was just wondering, because even to Kirk's point, it's like I guess I was wondering, like, you could say the Bible could have said, just ban this altogether. When you go in and conquer a land, you won't take any of the women. And it's like, but then that's what I mean. It's like, this is saying if you're going to take a woman, this is the process. And so I'm like, because if it just said don't take any of the women, then you're just left with a bunch of people that perish. They don't have any children. They just die. And it's like,
so Rashi actually very much there, and this is 1,000 years ago before there were any feminists. He explains quite clearly that the Torah there, specifically with Yafa Tor, that this woman taken in captivity, is walking you through a process that is meant to actually prevent you from taking her as a wife.
oh,
Because it says you have to wait 30 days and shave her head and and allow her to cry and all these things,
Like,
right?
with her nagging, make sure you know.
Yeah,
Like Hezi said, make her ugly. Listen to her whine. And see if you can
exactly.
push through. Yeah.
Right, and it's a process of sanctification which removes you from that thing which the Bible does not approve of. So what a lot of people, and specifically the atheists who are trying to look for things in the Bible, and funny enough, their only moral basis for judgment of the Bible is the Bible itself. Like, why do you believe slavery is bad? The only reason they believe slavery is bad is because the Bible takes a negative view on slavery. And then,
Oh no, that I was just gonna say, I actually was talking to some Christian friends not too long ago. I actually will advocate for slavery. I just think it's oppression that's bad. I don't think the Bible's bad about. I'm like, because what is marriage? Marriage is the same freaking thing.
Are you being serious?
I'm being dead serious. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't.
like okay, like I get the idea that the Bible isn't saying something as an ideal, it's just understanding human reality and pointing people to direction. But like that logic could be used to justify any bad thing in any book that has any marginal regulation on that bad thing.
Kirk, answer the question. What makes you think slavery is bad? By what standard are you judging slavery as bad?
Forcing another human being to do something against their will.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's
What
what
is
you
what? Hold on, Jason.
Oh, sorry.
Kirk. What? Where? Okay. Why is that bad?
The reason that is bad is because if they don't have the ability to refuse to do something, that will make them go against their self-interest.
Okay. What? Why is that bad?
Because one of the ways of pursuing life is by pursuing your self-interest. How can you live
What? Okay,
happy?
Kirk. Why do you believe that it's fine that we allow people to pursue their self-interest? How is that bad? How? What is the standard by which you are judging that?
Because if people can pursue their self-interest, they can live a happy life.
Okay, so what do I care if somebody else can be happy? Why should I care?
You don't think like human happiness is
No. I do think, but that's because I have a Bible which tells me what right from wrong. Give me a measure by which you are making this measure. Like, where are you getting your morality from? Because I'll tell you, before Judaism and Christianity, right, the Romans, the Egyptians, the Chinese, every other society thought, well, of course we enslave other people. They're weak, we're stronger, so we should enslave them.
Yeah,
that's what God does too,
and
right?
pre-Christian societies were barbaric, but like when we have Friedrich Nietzsche and Ayn Rand, like in the 21st century, who have moved past the Egyptian Roman times, telling us morality, they can present more coherent philosophy that the Romans didn't have. And
No,
the Christian...
they don't actually have. This is the problem of neo atheism. Is it all it is cut flowers. All it is people who are presupposing the morality of the Bible and then using it as a judgment of the Bible itself when they have no actual reasoning, and that's why they end up just failing. Like Nietzsche and Ayn Rand, these are not coherent things.
I mean, like I agree with you. Like I'm not an atheist. I'm just saying, if it, like, do you not understand why your average person would lead to a more humanistic morality, but that doesn't need God?
They do so because they are cut flowers. They do so because they grew up in a society that has Judeo-Christian morality, and without thinking of it, they presuppose that morality without having an actual basis for it.
But like in say like Nietzsche or Ayn Rand's case, they don't believe in the Judeo-Christian notion of worship of things outside of man. They believe in more like man being an end in and of itself.
Well, okay, let's separate Nietzsche from Ayn Rand, because ultimately, first of all, Nietzsche, he's hard to understand, and it's not obvious that he takes the view so many people give of him. Jordan Peterson would say that Nietzsche was actually very cognizant of the failings of a world without religion. But Ayn Rand was just an ignorant fool. She did not realize that she was presupposing a lot of things. And when you drill down to the core of her morality, first of all, when you look at how she lived her life, you see her morality was incoherent. and
Oh, her getting Social Security?
not Social Security. Look into how she lived with Nathaniel Brandon and how she treated her own husband. Her life was, yeah, her morality was completely bankrupt. There's a reason why so many objectivists are polyamorous.
Do you know Joran Brooke of the Ayn Rand Institute?
Yes, I know of him. Yes,
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of
to a
his
lot of
stuff, but
he says.
he seems like a pretty smart guy, but not. I mean, that's one I agree with, but
He's a pretty smart guy, but when it comes down to it, the Ayn Rand Institute, um, the more you look into objectivism, I mean, yeah, I was in high school too, and I was also very enamored with Ayn Rand, as were many of my friends. But then I grew up.
well, I think objectivism is a lot more coherent than like postmodernism or Marxism, because at least objectivism sees man as an end in of itself and doesn't see man as some sort of weird collective of hierarchies or um, pseudo Christian notions of original sin just with class. But like, I think you're right that a lot of atheists do presuppose a Judeo-Christian morality from the more you know learned atheist. But like, I'm not saying that you're wrong. The origin may be Judeo-Christian, but you not see how that can be transferred into secular archetypes.
Okay, so this is the basic discussion we've been having in this little corner for a lot. And if you go look at ARC and what, like, we, I mean, we've been discussing this so much, but Jordan Peterson, look into cut flower syndrome, look into Tom Holland, and
I will. I'll look up cut flower syndrome.
yeah, I wonder what you would find if you Google cut flower.
I don't know what we're talking about.
Well, here, let's see what it says. Cut flower syndrome. Many in our day have what I call a cut flower mentality. They focus on the immediate experience of the flower, neglecting the need for roots that sustain the plant. It is normal and appropriate to enjoy flowers, but that enjoyment will be short-lived without the long-term nurture of the plant. This is especially problematic in matters of faith. Many followers of Jesus suffer from cut flower syndrome in the primary areas of biblical knowledge, theology, and worship. Without roots, they are subject to being tossed about by fads and pressures instead of standing firm in confidence and understanding. Immediate experience and crowdsourced values are real liabilities when it comes to living as a disciple. This leads to situations where our judgments and practices are based on personal preferences and subjective evaluations, rather than drawing on God's word. We think we have to figure everything out for ourselves instead of drawing on the witness and careful thinking of God's people across the ages. Yeah, I mean, this is basically what I'm talking about.
So basically, second-handedness.
It's Sam Harris presupposing morality that was handed to him on a platter and then thinking he came up with it by himself. It's just silliness. We've been going for almost 3 hours.
Soon.
Yeah.
So we should say our ending prayer before we go. I think I'll do it myself.
And would you mind? I know put your personal politics aside. Do you mind including a prayer for the IDF soldiers that are currently facing Arab terrorists?
I will pray for everyone who is facing terrorists. Okay. Elokeinu v'Elokei Avotenu. Our God and the God of our fathers. ha'er enenu b'toratecha. Enlighten us, our eyes, with your Torah. Teach us to be your people, doing your will in this world. And help us fight against evil and to do good, to defeat those who kill and maim and bring the world down, and to help those who help others, who help humanity, who defend the weak and the powerless. Help us be good people and help us be amidst good people and supporters of good people, and defend us from those who worship death and worship violence, especially those who live in the Holy Land. Whether Jew or Gentile, help us see your light and your truth wherever we live. Amen.
Amen.
You were saying it, Jason.
I wasn't saying anything. That was a good prayer.
Yeah. Do you, out of curiosity, Jacob, do you have any friends or cousins or family that serve in the IDF or have?
I do have. I don't have friends currently serving. I certainly have a lot of family. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry about what's going on. Like, I know you love to talk about like Zionism and heresy, but like on a human level, I understand that the Jewish community does face a lot of issues that I, as a person from America, don't. So, I mean, I hope.
So, I mean, I guess in the next few minutes, I'll address the elephant in the room in terms of Zionism. One of the things I've been saying on Twitter is the craziness of the people attacking Israel and the Zionists has been radicalizing me towards Zionism in ways that it wasn't before. I watch people who should know better glorifying
a lot of Muslims that otherwise smart
not
people.
just Muslims. Frankly, I mean,
And a lot of
Glenn Greenwald more than anybody. When you see how he is, as he says, "Yay," the way you see people failing to see what evil is. So I was listening to he's sometimes nicknamed the Green Prince. He was the oldest son of one of the founders of Hamas, and he while he was in prison, he saw how Hamas was treating other members of Hamas in prison in terms of torturing them, murdering them, accusing them of horrible things. And this made him turn to into an informant for Israel. He worked for the Shin Bet. He converted to Christianity, and he is one of the best spokespeople for the Palestinian cause, I believe.
Well, there are a lot of Arab Israeli Christians, I believe.
Yeah, well,
yeah, I mean, it depends how you define that.
Kirk, I'm speaking. Thank you. So when it comes down to it, if you care about, and you should care about Gazans, about the million children in Gaza, about the Palestinians. And this is one of the things that really makes me not happy about Zionism, is that a lot of Jews don't feel a responsibility for the Gentiles who live in Israel as people who live there. And you hear the horrible things that people like Glenn Greenwald will quote, as in trying to drive them out, or various stupid rabbis who people call themselves rabbis, right? Talking about like wiping people out and things like that. That's an ugliness that is un-Jewish, that has pervaded Zionism, because Zionism is a nationalist movement which is opposed to Judaism. A real Judaism is one that cares about the Gentile children in Gaza. And if you care about the Gentile children in Gaza, you don't want them under Hamas rule. Like, why Glenn Greenwald doesn't understand that a child living under Hamas is in far worse situation than a child living under Israeli occupation is just bewildering to me. Because while Israeli occupation is certainly not where I would want to live, it is definitely where I would prefer to live than living under Hamas without Israeli occupation. And somebody who can't see that is just not looking at reality. So, okay, go ahead. What did you want to say?
So what I was going to say is, so I don't know much about Glenn Greenwald, to be honest. I don't really watch a lot of people like that. But what I would say is, I think it really goes to mentality, not just in the case of Palestine, but in general. Like in America, like, do you see Democrats, like white Democrats, talking about like trying to fix inner city by investing in school choice, which is polls 90% with some like black communities, or like crime, or like anything that would help a minority group other than welfare and affirmative action. And I just think a lot of it is just paternalism, and it's a false paternalism, because if you actually love a group, you want to help them lift themselves up instead of this like virtue signaling. But this, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is
Yeah.
very much what Jordan Peterson talks a lot about as well. Watch the ARC conference. This is the type of stuff we've been talking about a lot. Oh, and by the way, anybody who is watching this channel, please do go click on the link, and I don't think it's too much to ask to donate $5 a month to Fountain of Comfort for us to try to do something good in this world. If you're not willing to do that, I don't know what I'm doing here. I run this channel because I hope that it's an influence in trying to get people to be willing to help the world be a better place.
Do it.
So
Do it. Give.
yeah, please.
Give.
If you can give more, that's great. But I don't think I'm asking too much when I ask for $5 a month. And there are some people who, yes, they're on fixed income, they're students, they're young, they don't have money. That's not who I'm talking about. Most people who are watching this, hopefully, usually these Bible studies get like 100 views, something like that. If you're watching this, I mean, I have 983 subscribers, it says.
What? Yeah, that's crazy. Gib. All right. Well, I gotta head out, guys. Sorry.
Okay. Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
It's great talking to you.
I'm going to end the stream.
Okay.